In the modern world, an ARG is very, very common. In fact, you've probably watched a couple yourself, and you're probably familiar with names such as the Mandela Catalog or Vita Carnis, just to name some very popular examples. Despite the sheer amount of successful ARGs and analog horrors, there's still an innumerable amount that never will make it off the ground, some that will barely even get any attention at all. And I feel like most people don't even realize this fact. The series we're talking about today is one of these examples where it's a creator who has seen very little success. Hell, they haven't even gotten any comments before I left a couple. And I wanted to talk about it because, as a small creator myself, I know how hard it is to have all your work, to put yourself into all your work and never see anything come back from it. And I wanted to share this series because I want the creator to keep going and perfect their craft. So, if this series is so small, how did someone equally as small discover this series? And well, I actually got subscribed to by this channel on one of my personal accounts. You'll see it on screen here. And I watched all their videos in one night and got invested and motivated to make a video on them. Before we start talking about this series, though, there's two things I want to mention. Number one, the channel will be linked in the description, and I beg for you, if you find this even the slightest bit interesting, go leave a like on their videos and subscribe to them, because I know, personally, as a creator, it helps motivate them to keep going to make more stuff. Secondly, do the same thing for me, please. It helps me feel motivated to make videos as well, and I'll talk about future projects I have planned in the future at the end of the video. That doesn't make sense. Let's just get into this. So on the channel as of current, there's only 6 videos. There was actually only 5 when I started this video. I'm re-recording all of this, but it's okay. Since this is kind of like showcasing the ARG as if like an advertisement, we're gonna go through each one, kind of building off of each other. So this video might be a little disorganized. I'm sorry. I don't really make content like this. Again, just felt motivated to. But let's start on Log 0, the first video on the channel. Log 0 starts with our first character being introduced. I'm going to refer to them as Iris, and I'll explain later why, but for now, just let's just run with it. So Iris is introducing us to the idea that they have connected to our internet world as if they were somewhere far away, which they are. They're in their own realm. Everything that happens in this ARG is happening in a different world, probably like a parallel world, but we can't be too certain of that. And in this video, it's mostly just getting us ready for like what's to come, but it does propose 3 very important things. 1, this is an alternate realm. 2, Volt, the main character, is the first person to start logging the issues in their world. And 3, the person running this channel was actually meant to see the logs that they're recovering, even though they seem to be recovering it as in like breaking into Volt, the main character's house, but we don't really know the situation. Regardless, I'm still going to be assuming that these tapes were meant for Iris, the person who started this channel. The second video on the channel is where things start to get interesting. We start with log 1, and off the bat, we can realize that there is a date in the top left corner of the video, August 2nd, 2009. Going further, we find that Volt is the one making these logs now. It's no longer Iris who started the channel. However, we also find that Volt is an alias that Volt is using, as he may be at risk. He acknowledges that he might die at some point and might not live to tell the tale, which is the reason for the tapes. Specifically, what Volt wants to catalog is his findings on the hometown case, where disappearings have been reported and reports of static around 3 a.m., the funny number. Now, the name Hometown could just be a way of obscuring the actual location, as Volt mentioned security concerns, but doing a little bit of research, I did find that there are 3 places in the United States where there are towns or areas called Hometown, and as an American myself, obviously everything revolves around us. We are the most important. The 3 places I found that have Hometown as a town, block, or city is in Pennsylvania, Charleston, and Chicago. I don't know if these are actually relevant, but I thought I would mention them. I have no, evidence to point to them being relevant, so just putting that out there. Going back to the video, Volt mentions that he finds a phone near hometown, and that it has a red screen, and that he's going to take it home and start doing experiments on its hardware and software. Volt mentions that he thinks he sees an eye looking at him through the phone, and on this bit of text we can actually spot some things in the background of the video, that being the text, liar, fake, and don't believe, at Volt's claims of seeing an eye. This hidden text isn't the only example in this video though, as at the end of the video we see, ironically, an eye asking us if we're enjoying the show. It seems pretty clear to me that this eye is a completely new character, so we now have 3 characters in the mix: Iris, Volt, and this mysterious eye. The next video answers a lot of the questions we have about this character though, as the video is actually not one by Volt. Its name is log_red.avi. This is obviously different from Volt's scheme of logging them by number, and this doesn't seem to be logged by Iris either, as they also use a number format, and, well, they haven't said anything since the first video. This video starts with an AI voice telling us that they're impressed we found this video, though we're not supposed to be seeing it, and there's also a red motif in the background, which makes it pretty obvious who this is, as we'll see later as well. The AI voice also calls out that we should be calling it Rogue at one point, so that's what we're going to name the 3rd character, as the red motif with the red phone from last video seems to line up pretty well. There's not too much relating to Volt in this video, other than Rogue seems to be calling out a scaredy cat, which is likely Volt, as Iris doesn't seem to be in these tapes, other than the first one. And Rogue also pokes fun at the fact that it's using an AI voice, and mentions that they're going to change their voice to something more human, which will be a very important factor later, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Something else of note is that Rogue keeps calling us humans and mortals, which points to them possibly being some higher being like a god or a deity, but we can't be too sure yet. Aside from all this though, there's not too much more interesting about this video, really just teasing that this character is around now, really just an introduction for them. So we're going to move on to Log 2, Volt's 2nd tape. Log 2 takes place on August 9th, which is 7 days after the first tape, and Volt has been working tirelessly on getting this phone open through hardware and software means. Volt mentions that something stronger than glue is holding this phone together, and the phone is like rejecting his PC tests, which is strange, but Volt comes to mention that the phone is almost organic, as it makes a breathing noise at night, and he swears he can see something looking at him through it. Interestingly, we find that Volt actually got a video of the eye opening on the phone and looking at him, though he mentions he stores it in his drawer, and I think that's an important fact because even though I haven't mentioned it in the descriptions of these videos, Iris, I believe it's Iris at least, they have been mentioning that they found such and such tape in like Volt's suitcase or in the Volt home. So it's strange that they wouldn't have searched the drawer unless it's already been taken, which could be a possibility, but I thought I should put that out there. Regardless of Iris being able to find the eye-opening video, Volt mentions that he's tried talking with the entity but has had no luck, unfortunately. And this is where Volt ends the log. However, it seems that Rogue continues the log as he inserts a news clipping, it seems, of reports of a died dog and a red snake running around hometown. Now, I do think these figures will be important later when we get to the 5th video in the series, but that's in a whole like research paper stuff. We'll get to it when we do. But Rogue mentions that he's insulted that these humans think he's some dog. We also see Rogue mention that we're humans again, which reinforces the idea that he's not a human. But he also starts mentioning a name over and over, Iris, which is where I got the name for our first character. This Iris that Rogue mentions is supposedly connected to Volt's death, or their student's death, but as we only have 2 characters right now, that being Iris and Volt, and the fact that Volt doesn't seem to be around anymore as his tapes are being found in his home, it seems that Iris is some sort of teacher to Volt, and that Volt has died for them. Now, to explain why I think the first character in this series is Iris, the easiest one is that there's no other characters right now, so unless we want to introduce a fourth character, that being Iris, it doesn't really make much more sense to not give them the mantle of the first character. Though there's more evidence than just that. The idea that the Volt blogs were left for Iris, or the first character, suggests that they knew each other at least, and seeing is that Volt seems to be dead, the person Rogue mentions dying for Iris is also dead. It's pretty simple to make the connection, and that's what I'm running with as of now, just so we don't have to be like, oh, first character, because, you know, that would be annoying, and it just kind of makes sense. Anyways, that's all Rogue mentions for now, and he kind of just leaves, and so we're going to move on to the 5th video, where the big stuff starts happening. Now, this video has a different title as well, being Red Precaution Video, and it seems to be a sort of an instructional video by Project Red, or the Research Indoors Delusion organization. Important to mention that they're not actually government associated, but they're government trusted. I don't know what that means, really, like, I don't know, but they pointed it out at the end of the video, so I thought I would mention it here while we talk about them. Anyway, Red is reporting on this disease called Crimson Arm Syndrome, I'm gonna call it that. And it's this disease that basically turns your arm really red, and it starts moving on its own. And there's a couple of side effects that come with it, like weak bodies, your right arm moving and writing on its own, and something called the God Eater theory, and your increased belief in it. Now, if you've been on the internet for like a month, you know that something called the God Eater theory is going to be really important to this. And I did too. Now, unfortunately, there's not too much information on the internet, though I did find one possible resource, one possible link to this God Eater theory. And I need you to stay with me. But Persona 5. I know, it's really random to bring up Persona 5, but there's a reason. Slight spoilers, or no, major spoilers for Persona 5's ending, but at the very end of the game, you fight a god of control, and his name is Yaldabaoth. Now, the figure Yaldabaoth is based on a real mythological character, also named Yaldabaoth. Now, from what I can tell, Yaldabaoth is a figure in Gnosticism. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm also not an avid believer or follower, so if I get any of this wrong, I apologize, but religion can be hard sometimes, and this one's pretty wacky, so just, I'll try my best to explain this. All you really need to know is that Yaldabaoth is the shadow of God, essentially. He's made from fragments of him, and basically chaos, and he is a deity who falsely believes he is the height of creation and can basically only create very limited, like, shadows of what the true god can. Eventually, Yaldabaoth gets punished for his ignorance, and he is eventually thrown into the Dead Zone, I believe it's called, where he basically rots there for eternity and eventually loses his mind. And he comes to the grim truth that if he cannot create, he will destroy. Before even his imprisonment, Yaldabaoth had a strong hatred for humanity, talking into them as coldly as he talked to anything else, and he mentions that he hates their free will, as it questions his authority, and as the god of ignorance, really, he cannot stand for it. And at the end of the tale, essentially, Yaldabaoth is going to eventually destroy everything in the universe until he makes it to God's favorite creation, that being Earth, and he will try to consume it, basically. Consume is a very purposefully chosen word, as there are counts of Yaldabaoth eating other gods, where the God Eater term comes from, which is good because I wouldn't know where else to go with this if not. Now, this all does seem a bit out of left field. I mean, we're talking about a world with, you know, a disease and what seems to be a scientist. I forgot to mention it, but it seems that Volt is working for Red. But the inclusion of this very niche, god, I guess not niche, but like this very underrepresented idea of a god in the media is very random, but I think that the following video helps support this idea. Also, something I forgot to mention before we go into the next video, Yaldabaoth is described as his true form being the body of a serpent with the head of a lion, and obviously you can connect this back to an earlier video where with the accounts of a dyed dog and a red snake. A lion's head could be confused for a dog, I suppose, but the snake one is pretty clear, so that's also evidence to support it. Now, the final and sixth video, the one that got made while I was making this video. It's okay, I'm not insulted. I'm actually happy, because it helps reaffirm my ideas, as delusional as they are. It seems to be another video by Rogue, who I'm calling Yaldabaoth, but I'll stick with the name Rogue. It is log_red2.avi, and it is a shorter video than others where Rogue is essentially calling out Volt, saying that he just needs a few tweaks, and then he gets a real voice, a human voice. Now, interestingly, unlike the research I did, Yaldabaoth speaks in a very cold and dejected tone, but here in the video, he speaks with quite an intense hatred. That could be the voice change mentioned in the first AVI video, or it could just be, you know, obviously to make the video more interesting and believable, but I thought I'd point out that those don't quite connect. Rogue also brings up the idea that heaven, hell, earth, and ourself might not be real, and he starts talking about how he's not a god or a famous idol, but rather violence. And that kind of is strange from what seems to be a non-human entity. Not being a god either is very strange. The most interesting thing in this video, however, is the text in the background, as all ARGs are, where we can find the following phrases. The God Eater is real. The Volt is dead. The other six rise. Violence is the key. And finally, brace humans. Now, most of these kind of just seem like throwaway lines, like the God Eater is real and Volt is dead. These kind of seem like things we already knew. Violence is the key. Probably just saying Rogue himself is the answer. Makes sense. Brace humans. He's coming. But the one of importance, to me at least, is the other six rise. I mentioned it very briefly earlier, but Yaldabaoth made essentially his own archangels. They're called the Archons. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And he made 6 of them, with him being the 7th. And in the video, the other 6 rise. So this kind of just propels my theory a little further, as well as the fact that he's questioning heaven and hell and earth, as Yaldabaoth made his own false heaven, and he hates everything now. He wants to destroy all if he cannot create, in line with the idea that violence is the key. So that's kind of where I'm at with the theory right now, although I want to point out that in the lore that I read, there is one of his Archons that turn against him and start rebelling, kind of like a Lucifer situation, but I mean, he's in the right this time. So the other 6, I don't know if that's entirely true, because, you know, it would technically be 5, but he could be counting himself, but I don't know. I thought I would point it out. With all of the videos covered, however, let's go ahead and wrap up what I believe the story is trying to tell us. In a parallel world, there is a god named Yaldabaoth, who is essentially aiming for the destruction of everything. And on the Earth, there is a group called Red, who is trying to help the people of the world survive, to avoid this Crimson Arms syndrome, to avoid being chosen by the God Eater. And it would seem that Volt is a part of it, or at least involved, as one of the tapes was found in his suitcase, I believe. I think it was a suitcase. But anyway, Volt is part of Red, and he is researching and finds a phone that seemingly connects to Yaldabaoth directly. At some point, Volt perishes, and Iris is left to discover the tapes and is trying to communicate with us, the viewer. That is my theory as of now. And as of now, I mean, we literally just got a video like a day ago, but going to the comments, you might notice something a little funny. You will find yours truly and the Volt logs communicating, and they mentioned that they might make a little bit of a video on how they were able to connect to our world. So, in the future, we might get some information on that, and maybe that'll lead to something interesting in the future. But anyway, that's all I have to put forward. I think that my Yaldabaoth theory is a little out there, but I think it stands on its own two legs, with the new video supporting it a lot, really. But that's everything I can give to the video. And before I end the video, I just want to say a couple of things about this series, the creator, as well as my future. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, please go subscribe to them, leave a like. I would love to see this series flourish and get the attention it deserves. I think it's very well made so far. It's got an interesting premise and story, and I'm biased because, I mean, I feel a little involved, but I think it's a good story and I want to see it flourish. Secondly, I would also really appreciate it if you left a like on my own video and subscribe if you want more content. It helps me make more. And I think the next video I'm going to make is one on Jujutsu Kaisen, as it's ending today as of recording, and I want to make a video wrapping up my thoughts on it, as it's been a pretty big part of my life for the past almost a year and a half, I think, and I want to talk about it. But that's all I have for this video. I enjoyed making this, and I hope you all go follow them. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. Ciao.